Why are we rushing? Why are we in a hurry? What is so important that we're rushing towards? Hi everyone, welcome back to the Roaming Collective podcast. I am so extremely grateful that you're here. My name is Trisha. I'm the host of the podcast. I'm also the founder of the Roaming Collective, and I'm a certified human design reader and an intuitive. So the topic that I really wanted to talk about today, it seems a little simple, but I promise it is so powerful, is the topic of rest and how that looks, how you can actually implement this into your own daily life, because this has been such a theme for the season of life I've been in. I talked about in the first episode how I went through so much burnout, which I'll get a little bit more into today, and how that I was overriding a lot of my own intuitive nudges and just what I knew I was needing. And also in this new season right now, which is how my business has just been growing so much, and how it's actually so important to have that balance instead of just constantly pushing, because I don't want to get back to that place of burnout. And with it overall, with your health and everything, rest, I think it's just so underrated. And especially in a culture that we live in where it is so taught to be hustling, to be going after things, to be pushing forward. If you're not doing something, then you're not productive. I just want to scrap all that and to give you permission to just honor yourself. Here, I really want to give you tips that you can follow your intuition. You can follow your energy type if you want to learn more about your human design. I also did an episode on that and understanding how maybe you might need more rest in that regard, or just to how that might look for your energy type. I just really want this space to feel like you are giving tools that you feel like you can balance in your life and things you can actually call in and achieve. And sometimes these things might seem so simple, or sometimes they might be against what we've been taught and what we've been conditioned to believe. And it might feel a little uncomfortable sometimes to go to those places to have an audit of your life in a way, and to look and be are there ways that I'm overriding this when I know I should be leaning in more? I got so burnt out when I was working in corporate America. So I was working in corporate for 8 years or so. It was just not for me. I knew that corporate America was not my future path, but I kept doing it anyway. And because I kept overriding that, over time, my health, my energy, everything just became so drained out of me. And I felt like I was not myself. I was exhausted all the time. I would go into the office, both when I was living in Chicago and when I was in Austin. I just remember even just being there a few hours, I just couldn't do it. I would get home and I would be I can't even open this laptop again and to finish any work. I have to take so much more time to recover from being in there. And it wasn't even anything that was crazy. I think it was just sitting in that space and being in that environment, I think was really just draining me in a way that I didn't even realize. It was almost kind of a low hum in the background that was slowly just taking my energy and everything down. When I ended up taking a leave of absence, which I'm so eternally grateful that I did. So if you feel like you were at a point of burnout, definitely look into it. See what your company offers. There's a reason for why it's there. Number one, so exhausted. I was crying all the time, and I was just extremely stressed out beyond belief. I remember I got my cortisol blood work done, and mine was 15 points above what the highest max was. I was stressed out to the max. I feel like it was taking such a toll on my health. I was feeling just so overwhelmed and just so I just knew it wasn't for me. I didn't see the path forward. I was just feeling so frustrated. There was just so many feelings involved in it. And it was very much that year, last year for me. It was definitely more of an inward season. So I was a lot more in a resting phase where I was, even though if it wasn't really by my choice, I was more kind of in a hermit mode where I feel like I didn't have as much energy to go out and do the things that I wanted to do. I was in a certain regard just kept pushing through and kept overriding that. But then when I was starting to take my leave, it got to a point that couldn't be ignored. I was I've been delaying this for a long time, and I think my body's finally it's enough. We've had enough here. We need to actually rest and just take time for ourselves. And I think that there is such a lot of fear around slowing down. But what if I told you slowing down actually gets you what you want? Because when you are stuck in a survival mode, when you are stuck in I am so exhausted, my body is just trying to get me through the day, that is when you start missing your intuition, when you start missing these signs and these cues, because you are just so focused on getting through the day that then over time you start to notice like, oh my gosh, I was just so laser focused. And listen, everyone goes to that phase, everyone goes to that season. So if you're in that season, that is great. And listen, you can always take little baby steps and know that there's always a way out of what you are feeling stuck in, what you are feeling that friction and frustration in. And sometimes it might be the obvious answer. Sometimes it might seem something that is so counterproductive. I need to really relax my nervous system during this time. I have been stuck in fight or flight for a while. And mind you, this is also during the time that I was healing a lot of my body. So I was going to a holistic practitioner, and then I started seeing an acupuncturist towards the end of last year as well. And they changed a lot of my viewpoint. But even the fact that I was even still trying to put so much effort into like healing my body, that I still got to that place of burnout, right? So sometimes like the body is just like, oh, now we're safe. Now it's time for us to completely rest and just lay down and like take that time to really like decompress and actually take a breath to like slow down. When I finally slowed down during my leave, I just rested. Like I would lay on the couch. I would do long walks in nature. I would do meditations. I just tried to do things that I would wake up that day and be like, okay, what do you need from me today, body? So that's one thing you could always do. You could always check in and be like, okay, what do I need today? And really implementing more time for rest. So if you're the type, so I've been learning a little bit more about my constitution and everything. And so I'm a Vata Pitta. And so Vata is like the air, and it's a lot of like creativity, a lot of movement, and Pitta is like this fire where it's like motivation, momentum, when I get things done. And so lately my Pitta has been out of imbalance. And so that's why when I've been working with my holistic practitioner and my acupuncturist, I've had a lot of heat in my body. And so that's also like in the Chinese medicine term. So I just have a lot of like heat that has been overridden because Pitta has been driving a lot of this. And so I remember my acupuncturist kept saying, she's like, you really need to slow down and take more naps and rest. And at the time I was just kind of like, yeah, okay. I was like, sort of like getting it. But then somehow this week it just really started to click for me. I was like, oh, no, I totally understand why she was saying that, because the more I've gone into my constitution, that is just how I'm naturally a little bit programmed. And that just might be my like imbalance that I might lean in a little bit towards without me realizing it. And so there's another type that also is like the opposite, right? Where that is the type where it's like a lot more like slowness. They like to take more naps. They might actually need more of that gentle push to get going. So everything is a balance, right? And so sometimes you'll start to notice when you're out of balance. And so for me, what happened, I think I've had so much time throughout, I don't even know, maybe a long time in my life. I think I was really stuck in a fight or flight, and I was very stuck in like a rush state where I was so fearful if I slowed down and let go that I wouldn't be productive and things wouldn't get done, and then this and this and this and this would happen. And sometimes that is just stories we're telling ourselves in our minds that we're taught to believe, when actually when you slow down, you can get the things that you want. And I was like, it kind of takes a little bit of time to like change that. Listen, I adore my family. I love them so much. Growing up, we were always a lot more like rush and go do things. And especially my dad, he used to honk the horn when we were inside getting ready, because it was him and then the three of us girls. And so my dad would always be honking the horn to like, let's go, let's get it moving. And I remember just like rushing out the door so many times. And so my dad will tell you, he always says, I was not born with patience. He's like, that's something that I've had to learn so much throughout my life. I think that I kind of like had that in my nervous system a little bit, where I needed to like, why are we rushing? Why are we in a hurry? Right? Like, what is so important that we're like rushing towards? So just like taking those moments to slow down in everyday life too. So it's like, okay, even throughout the day, I try to keep things that's super simple. So if I'm like making breakfast in the morning, sometimes I notice I start rushing. I'm like, I don't need to rush. It's okay. You can just slowly cut your fruit, slowly make your tea, and really be intentional about everything that you're doing throughout the day too. I think that is just key. And again, all these things can be little baby steps that can get you to where you need to go. You don't need to like immediately just go and lay on the couch all day and then just like not do anything, right? Like if that feels like it's a lot for you, or you feel like your body is just like, maybe we're not ready there, then just take little things you can do to get to that, because it takes, practice, takes repetition, and it takes time to help your nervous system calm down and relax and get into a state of like regulation. And this isn't to say that, of course, you can be productive, of course, you can do things. I'm more so just talking about the balance. And this has been a little bit of like my own personal navigation of understanding this balance within my own life, because I have been go, go, go. I think even in corporate too, just like having to be on line all the time was also just a lot to always have to be on. I feel like you'd always have to be answering in Teams. Your Teams could never go on a full status. You had to like always be at someone's call. And so it feels good to really just like, as I'm in this new season, this new phase of my career and just my life, of having more of that autonomy for myself and really honoring what I need. And taking those little moments for yourself. So even if you are still working a corporate job, maybe checking in to seeing like, is this actually what this place is doing? Like maybe that is where I need to explore if this place is a right fit for me. Or is this something that I'm putting on myself where I feel like I need to always be answering things super fast and I need to always be scattered and just like, okay, like I need to answer this, I need to go. So just like check in there and then see, and then that way you can start to implement little things and be like, okay, I actually don't need to respond to this message right now. It's okay if I just sit for 5 minutes and sit in that uncomfortability. So sit uncomfortable with it. If it feels uncomfortable, that's okay. Notice the stories that come through your mind. If your mind is like, well, if we don't answer this and this is going to happen, then someone's going to get mad and then I'm going to get fired. Just start to pay attention to some of those limiting beliefs and some of those fears that come in, because that'll help pinpoint, okay, this is what I need to keep track on. This is what I need to like dig a little bit deeper on and just get curious about, like, why am I feeling more in this route? And so when I was finally out of that environment, I actually did feel like I could calm down a little bit more, and I actually feel like I became more creative because my mind and everything wasn't so distracted by getting all these tasks done and answering to people at the time that they were asking for. And it took a little bit of time. Like when I first left, it was like a lot of like trying to unravel that. There's still just a lot of anxiety and a lot of that panic and a lot of like having to be on. And then that was starting to creep into my own business a little bit. And I noticed I needed to start establishing more boundaries. And so the phase I'm in, which is amazing, my business has been growing so massively. Things have just been coming in so fast. And this has been what I've been manifesting. So I'm so grateful that it's all coming in. And this is actually such a good lesson for me that I realized this week, because I noticed a lot of my weekends are now working my part-time job or doing stuff with my business, which again, I designed it that way. That is what I wanted. And I was like, oh my gosh, now when do I have my time to have my full rest day, right? And I was like, I need to honor that, because I do actually need like a full day or two to like decompress and to rest. And especially if I'm not doing on the weekends, which is like what the rest of society is doing, like, well, then I need to like pick some days, right? Because even though my schedule is going to start looking so vastly different as I left the traditional 9-to-5 role, I realized I was like, okay, Monday, I need to just honor my body and just rest. And this past Monday, I was like, I'm not checking stuff for my business, because that's also sneaky. Sometimes I'm checking on my Instagram or my TikTok and just trying to like respond to people, especially as I'm getting a lot of DMs and a lot of messages coming through. And some of that old like corporate was coming through where I was like, oh, I need to respond to them like right now. And I was like, it's okay. If they are meant to be in my business, they're meant to be in my business. And it's okay if it's delayed an hour or a day. Like they will still feel like that they're excited for this business, unless it's something that's like absolutely time sensitive if I have a gathering or something. But if it's something that is like not urgent, that's okay. I'm like, they will still be there if it's meant to be. And I felt so great on Monday just to fully relax. Like I was like, I'm just laying on the couch. I'm watching movies. I'm going to do my red light therapy. I'm going to take naps. If I need to take naps, I'm going to just completely rest and just slow down for a little bit. And you know what is so funny? All the girls understand my cycle. So I was a little bit late. And I think since coming off birth control, which I did a whole episode on too, of healing my body and all that stuff, which I've been still on this journey, as I was on it for a decade, and then I came off, and so it's still regulating. I noticed my period was late, and I was like, okay, when your body isn't bleeding, it means that it doesn't feel safe enough to bleed. And I was like, okay, my body is letting me know it doesn't feel safe right now to slow down and to actually bleed and to like take a beat. And my body's probably like, oh, when she rests and we can bleed. So I was like, okay, on Monday, I did castor oil, which castor oil is so great for your body and just also for women too. You could put it in your belly button, especially if you're trying to get your period started. You can also put it on your feet too. And so I did that because I was like, okay, I'm just going to lay down and rest with it. Sure enough, later by the evening, my period started. I was like, yes, because I actually slowed down and I was like, I allowed it to flow instead of like forcing it and getting frustrated and like, why is this not happening? Why is this not here? I'm like, let me do the opposite of what I was sometimes that my mind track will go on. And I'm like, let me change it up and let me actually sit and rest. And then sure enough, it just flowed and it happened. And that was also what I was realizing too, which to me, that was also a lesson for abundance. And abundance was something that I've also been very absorbing and changing my mindset around as I left a very secure corporate job. And that is something that I have been changing a lot of my lens on and some of my conditioning and just ways of how some of that has been sneakily in my mind and in my belief system of more of that scarcity and that lack. I've been leaning more into an abundance mindset. And I noticed that this type of mind track was sneaking into even that again, because I was like trying to do all this research to understand abundance. I was like, well, how does it look? How do I do that? And I was like trying to put so much into it. Then literally this like situation that happened on Monday just showed me, I was like, when you let things go, it just flows. I'm like, I think maybe things need less pressure from me and like less trying to put all my energy into it, and instead let me just take my energy back and just relax. And then sure enough, that is when things just flow in. And here's the crazy thing too, even though I took that rest on Monday, opportunities were still in my email. People were still messaging me, like things still were happening even as I was resting. And it's because I trusted my energy at those different points where I had more of my sacral generator lit up feeling. And I would post from that place, and I would actually post from a place of, I feel so excited to get this out into the world. I feel like I just need to share it. And sure enough, when I do that in that energy and that sort of like mindset and that like all my body is like ready to just share this message out, that is what carries it through. And that is just what keeps giving and just keeps showing up, is because I don't always have to be 100% present and I don't always have to be 100% on. And I also did a full overview of human design. So if you're curious about your human design type, you could also go and listen to that. And then you could also go to my website and pull your free human design chart too. And my chart, so mine's a generator, and generators, we've always had a very, there's a misconception that even though we have this innate life force energy where we can go and go do a lot of things and always be moving, that there is a time that we need to recharge. And it's like trusting your body with that, because when I recharge, it actually sets me up for all the opportunities that are coming and everything that is flowing in. And so it's just a lesson for me, and hopefully if you feel like you're also feeling this too, that it is safe to slow down. It is okay to slow down, because rest is literally the medicine. Rest is the medicine that sometimes you need. Sometimes it's like less trying to figure it out. It's less trying to put force into it. It's less trying to like push harder. It's not always trying to like, let me solve every single avenue of this so I can have it right and I can figure it out. Sometimes when you push back on that and when you just like release that, let me tell you, that can be really hard. Okay. So if you also struggle with that, me too. I also struggle with trying to just let it go. And I think this has also been very much of a testament for the season I'm in, of just trusting and letting it go and letting it flow. And here's the thing, it's like when you kind of like leave some of that pressure and that things that you're just like really wanting, it's almost kind of like that detachment, the law of detachment. When you kind of like detach yourself from it, I swear, I feel like that's when it just comes in, because you're not like so hyper focused on it and like forcing it. And then when you kind of lean back with it, it's like, then it allows it to come in, and then it allows it to come in ways that you maybe not have expected before. Our minds might have a very limited vision of, this is how this opportunity needs to come in. This is how this is meant to go. And sometimes it might be completely opposite, but then you even get an even better result. And so it's just learning to like tap more into our body, because our bodies have more of that wisdom than our mind ever could. And our bodies are so innately smart, and we have been so taught to really listen to the mind, which again, there's a time and the place for our mind. Our minds are great. They're beautiful. They think, they do all these things. They can be creative and, process, and they're amazing in their own right. But sometimes it gets to be in a place where the mind is overtaking the body, and then there's like a disconnect. And then that is when your body starts to really slow down, and then your body's kind of like getting forced to do these things, but then it's like showing up in all these symptoms of like, I feel exhausted. I feel like I can't focus on anything, or I feel just so distracted, or I feel like I just feel so depleted, right? So just tapping into more of those cues and taking more of that time to slow down, because actually when you rest and when you slow, that's what's on the other side of it, is actually having everything that you want. And then guess what? When you slow down, that is also when you get the creative ideas. That is when you can actually have more of a lens to looking at things that are coming in and things that may have already been in your worldview that you didn't even realize was there, because maybe there was just like such that survival lens and so much of that survival trying to get through to things. And when that expands, right, then the abundance can come through. And abundance is always there. It's not like it's never not there. It's just how your mind and how your lens is seeing it and how your body is ready to hold it and have the capacity to have it. This has been such a lesson too, because I've gotten, again, so many opportunities and I'm so grateful for it. And I was starting to realize, I was like, ooh, I'm very intentional now about my time and really trying to make sure that I don't get into that place of burnout. Because for me, if the moment that this business does not feel fun, the moment that it doesn't feel, if it feels like a chore, if it feels like I'm like forcing stuff, that is the moment that I'm like, okay, I missed a line, I'm off track. Let me revisit and let me check in. Because the moment that that happens, I don't want that to happen for this business. I really want to make sure that I'm able to put my life purpose into this. And again, I see this as a clear vessel for me to share my gifts and to have purpose out in the world, so people feel like that they understand what they are also going through, and so I can help them at every phase of their life. And I can't do that if I'm exhausted and burnt out. So sometimes taking care of yourself and taking care of you actually sets you up so you can take care of others. And I was starting to notice I was having all these opportunities coming in, and I was starting to get that like adrenaline sort of like, ooh, okay, like that cortisol starting to run. And then I checked it and I was like, ooh, wait. I was like, okay, I remember this familiar feeling. Let me instead actually go sit with it and wait and rest a little bit. And then I can go and do these things and answer yes or no, depending on how I feel like my energy is ready to take it on. And I'm like, let me actually look at my schedule, because I want to build from a place that is so much balance and something that I feel am ready to have that giving and receiving, right? Because sometimes when you're just in overgive mode, then you can't really receive. And then it's just like, then you burn yourself out. So there's just such a beauty in really slowing down and honoring that. And I know this might be interesting as summer is coming up, and is probably like, summer is very much seen as to go and do all these things. But also I remember summer as a kid, and summer actually was a time that you could just go in the yard, play with your friends, lay outside in the sun for a little bit, slow down, go get an ice cream. Like there was things that I felt like were so small and just so pure. And I think that sometimes we've gotten away from it, where we're like in this focus of hustle and push and keep going, and I can't slow down, I can't do that. And it's like, actually, when you start to make a little audit of like all the things that are happening, you realize that you do have time. And you could always start small. It could be something that's 5 to 10 minutes. Do something for yourself, either taking a walk outside, or having, eating something that makes you feel exciting, or just checking in with yourself, like whatever it looks like, just to have these little things you can implement throughout, because those are what will then compound. And then over time, you slowly build those habits where you feel like, oh, okay, like now this feels like it's more natural to me. And now I feel more regulated. And now I can actually see opportunities coming in. And now I can actually be more creative, have more abundance come through, because I'm checked in with myself, and now I trust myself and I know it's coming in, instead of feeling like the lens is just totally up. So it's totally fine if you want to have a slow summer. Like, have a slow summer. Actually enjoy it and savor it. This is just your little reminder that you are safe to slow down, that rest is actually productive, and rest is actually what gets you on the other side of this. So I just felt like I needed to share some of what I've been going through this week, because I just felt like someone else needed to hear this. And if you're curious about your human design, I also do human design readings. And so you could go to my website and below in the show notes. And I'm happy to chat with you if you're like more like, okay, tell me about my energy type. Like, what should I be doing? How does this actually look for me? I'm happy to do that. So that way you can have more of like a framework. And then you're like, okay, let me pull what actually resonates and then what doesn't. So I would be honored to be able to do some readings for you. And if you guys need any more support, or if like you are having your own restful journey, please reach out to me. You can also write in the comments below so others can like understand that we're all on this journey together. But thank you guys so much for tuning in today, and I'm sending you so much abundance, joy, and also a restful summer.